a go? Yep. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting in the Myrtleford Memorial Hall. I think it's the first Alpine Shire Council meeting in the Myrtleford Memorial Hall, but please correct me if I'm wrong. There might have been Myrtleford Shire Council meetings here in the past. Welcome again, everyone, tonight. I just wanted to start by recognising the horrific events that have happened in Bondi in Sydney. Absolutely dreadful for our community and the people who've lost loved ones and who suffered through that terror, and the demonstration of incredible bravery that some people showed. I'd like to move on now to item 1, which is interim chairperson, and invite our CEO, Mr. Jeremy, to read.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Nicholas. Item 1.1 deals with the interim chairperson. On the 5th of December 2025, Councillor Gareth Graham resigned from the office of Mayor by giving the Chief Executive Officer a written notice of resignation. On this day, the office of the Mayor became vacant. Section 21C of the Local Government Act 2020 states that the Deputy Mayor must perform the role of the Mayor and may exercise any of the powers of the Mayor if the office of the Mayor is vacant. Section 26(6) of the Local Government Act states that a Mayor is to be elected within 1 month after any vacancy in the office of the Mayor occurs. Section 25(3) of the Local Government Act states that the election of the Mayor must be chaired by the CEO and be conducted in accordance with the governance rules. Chapter 2 of Council's governance rules further steps out the process for the election of the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor, including the requirement for the CEO to preside at the election of a councillor to the office of Mayor. The elected Mayor will then preside over the election of the Deputy Mayor. Giving consideration to the governance obligations noted previously, the Deputy Mayor will chair the meeting from items 2 to 8 of this agenda. The CEO will then assume the role of interim chairperson to deal with item 9.1.1 of the agenda, being the election of the Mayor. The elected Mayor will then preside over the election of the Deputy Mayor and the remainder of the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy. We'll move on to item 2, which is recording and live streaming of council meetings. Again, Mr. Jeremy.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. All council meetings are filmed, with both video and audio being recorded. Video is focused on a specific area, however, audio from the entire room is captured. In common with all narrative during council meetings, verbal responses to congratulations, obituaries and question time will not be recorded in the written minutes. By submitting a question, you consent to your question being read aloud at the meeting. The reasoning behind recording council meetings is to hold us more accountable and to improve transparency of council's decision-making to our community. The full meeting is being streamed live on council's YouTube channel, which is Alpine Shire Council, and will also be available on the YouTube channel shortly after this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy. Item 3 is acknowledgement of traditional custodians and recognition of all people. Now I'd invite all to stand. Alpine Shire Council acknowledges the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting today. Council also acknowledges all of the traditional owners of the wider lands of the area known as the Alpine Shire. We also acknowledge those people who have contributed to the rich fabric of our community and who strive to make wise decisions that will improve the quality of life for all. Thank you. Item 4 is a confirmation of minutes from the Ordinary Council meeting M11 held on the 25th of November 2025. The recommendation is that the minutes from that meeting as circulated be confirmed. Moved by Councillor Anderson and seconded by Councillor Graham. Councillor Anderson. Councillor Graham. Use mine.
Yeah, no, I've got nothing to add neither.
Any other councillor have anything they'd like to talk to in the minutes? No? Then I put the recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 5 is apologies, and we have none. Item 6 is obituaries and congratulations. And I am going to start on my right with Councillor Tanzin.
There we go. I said I knew how to use it. All right, I've got one. So a local from Mount Beauty, Ben Truen, who ran True Tree Care in Mount Beauty, recently passed away last Thursday. He leaves behind a loving family and friends, a loving team from True Tree Care, and just bear with me, sorry, as well as a loving community. He's a local arborist in Mount Beauty, servicing the surrounding communities as well. He's one that we could all call on after any storm events. And someone, sorry again, someone who could reassure the community that their area was safe. The loss will also be felt across the Alpine Shire outdoor staff heavily, as he worked quite closely with them. And it will have quite a deep effect moving forward. Yeah, go ahead, mate. Actually, no, I'll keep going. If you bear with me for a couple of minutes, I've just got a little bit more to add. I don't believe in beating around the bush or sugarcoating the topic of mental health or mental illness. I believe that each one of us community members could name a handful of people who have lost a battle with mental illness. This happens far too often. Mental health affects each and every one of us at some stage in our life. Some people deal with mental illness in different ways. Some people cry their way through. Some people smile their way through. The key message in this is that everyone deals with it differently. Some show it and some don't. So if you see your mates in the street, ask how they are. Go for a coffee or go for a walk. And if you don't know the person that you walk past in the street, give them a smile. Say good day. Over the past 6 months, we've seen the most extreme and the most horrendous side of human behaviour, and I'm sure you all know the events that I'm talking about. We see living becoming more and more difficult for everyone, which is just more of a reason for us all to come stand together as a community and look out for each other. The conversations you have with your friends and family may be difficult, and it may be uncomfortable, but the difficult and uncomfortable conversations are the most important. Speak even if your voice shakes. Christmas is for most a very joyous time, a time for everyone to celebrate and be close to family. But for some, it can be extremely lonely and difficult. So please everyone, stay safe. Look after not only yourselves, but also your neighbours, and it's Christmas and New Year's. Thank you all.
Thank you, Councillor Tanzin, and very well said, because Christmas can be a difficult time for people, and absolutely we need to look after each other. Well done. Councillor Smith. Councillor Ronco.
That's it. Yes, so first I would like, I have 3 congratulations to do. So the first one, it's a bit or so. The Puka People's Market, the first one, have been happening last Saturday in Port Punka, and it was a very good market, especially for the community over there. So I was part over there, and to bring everyone together and to have a talk, it was very good for our community. The second one is a party in the park, also on the Saturday, was well attended, and a lot of people from the community, the Port Punka community, went to the market, and the afternoon went to this celebration, and it was really good for the community, for everyone, because we have not only Port Punka, but a lot of for Bright, and all the valley was there, so it was quite good. And the last one, just a word on the 2025 Tour of Bright, who was again a good success with a lot of participants, more than close to 500 participants, plus their family, to enjoy here the road in our valley too, and to practice their favorite sport. So, yep, that's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. I'd like to recognise someone who just recently died, Tony Menz, late of Myrtleford. He's stalwart of Buffalo River, and for many years, probably too many to count, involved with the CFA out of Buffalo River. He'll be a real loss to the community. Thank you.
Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholas. Nothing to add, thank you.
Councillor Anderson.
I'd just like to say a big congratulations to graduating Year 12 students this past week, and also especially to the Grade 6 students of Bright P12 on their graduation. I attended that graduation and I saw all of the students get up and do a short, brief speech, which was incredible to see, and just the stories they told about going through school and what was important to them and what they were looking forward to. It was really good to see those kids do that. So congratulations to the Grade 6 P12 students.
Thank you. Most of the things I wanted to say have already been said. I think that the celebration in Bright was fantastic, as Councillor Ronco pointed out, that the people who were there from across the Shire really enjoyed themselves, and it was a really good coming together, which is what we need at this time of year, I think. And I also wanted to call out the people who finished, in a positive way, the people who've finished schooling, who've finished their Year 12 VCE certificate. There's been some fantastic marks across the Shire, but I also wanted just to particularly commend the Duxes of the two schools that I know of. One's Dux of Marion College, who happens to have a proud father sitting here, and the Dux of Bright P12 was Jenna Stevens, and both of them in the 90s. So fabulous scoring. Well done. That's all for me, and Richard, and congratulations, apart from just saying thank you very much to everyone for coming to this meeting tonight, and I hope you'll have a happy Christmas. So we move on now to item 7, which is declarations by councillors of conflict of interest. Do any councillors have any conflict of interest on the agenda items tonight? No. And item 8 is public questions. We will start with questions on notice and then go to questions from the floor. We have 5 questions on notice, or 5 submissions. One of them has got more than one question in it, at least one. The first question came from Ron Janis. It was submitted quite some time ago, but he wanted us to ask this question in Myrtleford because it's very pertinent to Myrtleford. I'll read the whole bit. Sometime in the middle of last year or earlier, Council approved a contract with North East Civil to build a much-needed pedestrian walkway over the Ovens River adjacent to the Nimmo Bridge. At the next council meeting to be held in Myrtleford, could the CEO give the Myrtleford community a plausible explanation as to why this funded project has not yet commenced? What barriers are in play, that are holding this project in abeyance, and what, if anything, can the community do to support council to complete this project in a timely manner? And I am going to hand this over to our Director of Assets, Ms Buckley.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And thank you for your inquiry, Mr Jennis. As many of you would be aware, this project was funded after the bushfires of 2019-20. Funding became available through Emergency Recovery Victoria to improve community connectedness and support community development. You are correct, the contract was awarded in March 2024. Since that time, council officers have been working through several challenges in relation to the approvals for the location and construction of the bridge. The bridge was originally going to be located on the upstream side of the existing road bridge with a 3-metre offset from the existing road bridge. Although originally supportive, Vic Roads changed their minds and became concerned it would interfere with future maintenance of the road bridge. Other options were also considered for the upstream side, such as a 5-metre offset from the road bridge. However, Vic Roads were also then concerned about increased turbulence loads on the upstream side of the road bridge and issues associated with the fixed pedestrian bridge next to the road bridge. Costly hydrological assessments would have had to be conducted with very little likelihood of Vic Roads approval. The downstream side then became the focused and the most viable option, which has also had its challenges of its own and has taken considerable time to resolve, such as power line clearances, redesigns to avoid native vegetation, and considerations to ensure council meets its Land Use Activity Agreement obligations under the Traditional Owner Settlement Act 2010, given the footbridge location on Tungarang land. Council officers are now in the final stages of the detailed designs, with drawings expected this week and fabrication to begin in January, and negotiations with Tungarang expected to be finalised before Christmas. Construction should be completed by the end of March 2026. It is worth noting that the funding agreement states that the funding should be spent by December 2025, and council officers are today, as we speak, sending a notification of a milestone report to inform the funding body that we need an extension on the funding agreement.
Thank you, Ms Buckley. Question 2 is from Alan Fenn from Bright, and he has specifically asked that we read the whole letter. CEO and all councillors, on 17th of January 2025, I asked to speak to somebody about the large pin oak on the corner of Hawthorne Lane and Coronation Avenue, and I was allocated job number 82855. The tree in question is a very large pin oak with long, heavy limbs that over the years, due to buffeting from strong winds, are now hanging over the footpath and over my property, i.e. car parking area. This tree already has a history of dropping large limbs due to being overweight, and there's some photos been attached. On 2 occasions, the local tree crews have removed small branches, but nothing to the large limbs in question. I have now spoken to 3 arborists who have all said it needs a reduction of about 20%, as they believe it is only a matter of time before more limbs fall. The arborists have over 100 years combined tree work history between them. This is in no way criticism of the Shire arborists. They can only work in their designated parameters. I'm not just worried about mine and my tenants' property, but also the general public. Every day, school children stop under it, and during tourist season, countless amounts of people stand and study their maps for information. I'm of the mind that these limbs are dangerous to my property and the general public, and also my tenant's vehicle. I do not want the tree removed, just a reduction to the limbs in question. A quick question: if a limb should fall and damage vehicles, etc., are we covered by the Shire's insurance? And if not, why not? I would like this letter to be read out at the next Shire meeting and would appreciate a written reply. I'm also going to ask Ms Buckley to reply to this one.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll address the first part of the letter. Thank you for your inquiry, Mr Fenn. I have put forward your questions to the council arborist, and they confirmed that they completed a further assessment on the tree in late October and agree and have marked the tree as needing further reduction of limbs. Based on the risk assessment as part of council tree management strategy, the tree work has been scored as a low priority based on council's tree management assessment within the strategy. The low priority assessment score then gives council a period of 6 months to complete the necessary works. The works, however, have been scheduled for January, February 2026, well ahead of the required timeframes. To answer the second and shorter question, but apologies, a slightly lengthy answer, for council to be held liable for any loss, damage or injury sustained because of the tree falling or tree limbs falling, it would need to be proven that council had been negligent in its duty of care. If council has followed its own policies, procedures and plans in relation to tree management, i.e. proactively inspected the tree within an identified time frame in the plan, and either the tree is deemed healthy or works are identified and carried out within the recommended timeframes from the tree management strategy, then council cannot be held liable. The same does apply for any reports or requests from the public. If council has investigated and inspected, either deemed the tree as healthy or identified works to improve the tree health and completed those works within the recommended timeframe, then it cannot be held liable. If a tree is deemed healthy and it falls, this is considered an act of nature and council cannot be held liable under its insurance policy.
Thank you, Ms Buckley. Question 3 is from John Taylor, OAM, on behalf of the Myrtleford and District Historical Society, and I will read it out for us all. The recently circulated Community Infrastructure Needs Assessment document, drafted by consultants, indicates that the old school museum site at 29 Elgin Street, Myrtleford, is underutilised and non-viable, and recommends that consideration be given for the site either to be shared with other users and or have its collection of artefacts and memorabilia relocated and or decommissioned. At this stage, what concrete plans, as nominated managers of the site by DECA, does Alpine Shire have for this building? The ramifications for the group of dedicated volunteers who conduct its affairs and the community in general, given its status on the Shire's heritage overlay listing and the fact that the property, formerly Crown land, is now apparently owned by Alpine Shire. Again, Ms Buckley.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Mr Taylor. Good to have a chat earlier as well about this matter. I'll go into a little bit of background, which I know Mr Taylor is aware of, but for the purposes of the gallery and the public meeting. The draft SENA 2025 assesses current and future infrastructure across the 4 service towns of Bright, Mount Beauty, Myrtleford and Pulpunka to identify current use and outline priorities for future investment. The SENA, otherwise known as the Community Infrastructure Needs Assessment, provides a solid foundation to support future decision making and financial planning over the next 20 to 30 years. So a long-term plan. Council undertook a review of all council assets listed in the plan in each one of the 4 townships. The draft SENA captures the outcomes of the audit and analysis and also makes some recommendations to council to consider in the longer term. It is important to note that this is not an adopted document and the draft recommendations in the report have not been adopted by council. Council has released the draft SENA for community consultation for a period of 2 months. The purpose of the consultation at this stage is to seek feedback on the draft SENA to ensure the final document reflects community sentiment, and officers will review community feedback and recommended changes before finalising the SENA for council consideration at a future ordinary council meeting. A date has not been set yet, as the extent of the community feedback or issues raised is yet to be determined and consultation remains open. However, it is likely to be closed closer to mid-January 2026. It's worth also noting, which I spoke to Mr Taylor about this evening, is that prior to the document going back up to council, officers will present a consultation conversation paper back to the groups to show what changes have been made post-feedback prior to it going up to council, and they'll also be invited to comment on that conversation paper as well. To further assist gathering further feedback on the museum site, a workshop was held with Bright, Myrtleford and Kiewa Valley Historical Societies. This workshop has provided officers with invaluable insight into the activities of the societies and will definitely inform the final CENA. We also met with the Porpunka Reserve and Hall Committee, and additional consultation will occur with other groups later this month and earlier into January. I guess it's definitely worth reiterating some recent communication from Council that historical societies and museums are certainly much loved facilities in our towns, and Council officers very much appreciate the importance of these organisations and their collections, and also the very hard work of all of the volunteers involved in interpreting and disseminating local history and the significance of these collections to residents and visitors alike. And I did note this evening to Mr Taylor, the error of the officers was to not engage with the community groups, those that were earmarked for consolidation prior to the actual draft report going out, so we do apologise for that error. Just a reminder that the consultation with the draft remains open till mid-January 2026, and interested parties are certainly welcome to fill out the online survey and contact officers at any point in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Buckley. Question 4 is from Mary Pike from the Kiewa Valley. Lovely to see Mary and her partner in the audience tonight too. My concern is in regard to open space at the entry to Mount Beauty opposite the Visitor Information Centre, which had been a concern of the Upper Kiewa Valley Community Association for many years. As this group no longer exists, I ask this question as an independent community member. I have attached a few photos of the area on which I will comment. AusNet are mainly responsible for the maintenance of this land, but only for clearing under the power lines as fire protection. It is very uncertain what other organisations should be responsible for the overall area. I have not seen an AusNet contractor working in the area for some time, but someone, I know not whom, is obviously cutting access runs through the long grass, as can be seen in some of the photos. For some time, a local contractor did the cut for AusNet, and in an agreement which UKVCA had arranged through the previous Shire CEO, this contractor did an additional 3 cuts per year paid by the Shire. When AusNet brought in a new contractor, now at least 2 years ago, this agreement lapsed. The outdoor staff in the Kiewa are doing a great job in keeping grass cut on the road verge, even extending it in some places, but not under the plane trees, which is an area they did cut under previous supervisors. We now have St John's wort proliferating in the area, and I believe this is a damaging plant for native animals. Dead trees are also a concern. Is it possible for the Shire to identify who should have responsibility for this entire area, not just under the power lines, and if necessary, take responsibility for the maintenance and care of the area? And an addendum is that the local land care group have been taking great care of the riparian zone along the river for many years. And again, Ms Buckley, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Mrs Pike, for your question. I can confirm that this parcel of land is definitely an SP AusNet parcel, and council officers have been working tirelessly for some time to push for slashing works to be completed by SP AusNet on the entire parcel of land. Council's local laws officer, in their capacity as the fire prevention officer, have again been in contact with AusNet last week, and they assured council the entire parcel, would be cut across the entire area. Council's fire prevention officer explained the infringements that can be issued if they do not comply with the direction during the fire danger period. Council also reiterated to SP AusNet the parcel must be maintained throughout the year and especially during the fire danger period. The works will be completed in the coming weeks, and I've actually just been texted about an hour ago from the local law officers that they've confirmed it for Friday, given the pressure from Council and the warning, and that will be the entire parcel. In the meantime, Council have been maintaining the paths around this area and even widened them recently due to high snake activity to improve the appearance ahead of the Christmas school holidays. Council also agrees that the dead trees in question are a concern, and officers are investigating if they are the responsibility of Council or NECMA or another agency that we suspect, and we'll let you know the outcome directly. If Councils, they will be assessed and it will be determined where they sit on the priority list of tree removal works, as they are very dead. And also acknowledge the work by Landcare, the fantastic work there in the riparian zone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Buckley. Question 5 is from Mr Brian MacDonald, who is a local, asking about number 1 Mummery Road, Myrtleford. Question 1 is, please confirm the circumstances and process of how 1 Mummery Road land was acquired by the Alpine Shire, and I'll read question 2 as well. Question 2 is, with regard to the environmental investigations recently conducted on the said land, please advise what contamination and what levels were found. And I'll ask Ms Buckley to respond to this.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. An early answer, which we will provide more guidance on in future, but hopefully useful for Mr MacDonald at this point, and thank you for your inquiry. The Mummery Road mill operated until the late 1980s. Upon cessation of production, the then mill owners, Australian Forest Industry, implemented an approved site remediation program. The site was acquired by the Myrtleford Shire Council. At this stage, it is unclear of the exact circumstances. However, Council will complete further research to understand and provide the information direct to you, Mr MacDonald. Further to this, at the Ordinary Council meeting held on the 24th of June 2025, amongst other things, Council noted that further background technical investigations and other strategic work will be undertaken over the next few years to understand the development potential of this important land, which is largely zoned general residential zone. You will be invited to provide input at that time if it comes to fruition. Council officers are currently working through the results of the environmental investigations and doing their due diligence on what the next steps are, if any, for further environmental monitoring of the site.
Thank you, Ms Buckley. It concludes all of the questions on notice, and I thank the people who wrote them in very much. It's actually terrific to get input from our community members in this way. I now call for questions from the floor and remind people that they have a maximum of 2 questions. Is there anybody who'd like to ask a question tonight? Mr Dyer, please step up to the microphone, state your name and where you're from.
My name's Ray Dyer, that's better, and I reside out of Buffalo River. This question I asked a couple of months ago actually was question time when you do your voting on the minutes of the meetings. You vote without the question time being written up. Now, Will, you state that you do that because it's accountable. Well, as far as I'm concerned, it was not accountable because you're voting on minutes that are not even correct. So I'd like that looked into. I've been speaking about that for many, many years. The second question is, the Christmas tree that we've got down at Piazza Court Park, or whatever it is absolutely ridiculous. It should not be there. We have perfectly good 3 pine trees in Myrtleford, one in the roundabout of Stanley Street and Clyde Street, which would make a good Christmas tree. We have one out the front of the post office, which when we were Myrtleford Shire, it had lights in it and it got lit up every Christmas, and people look forward to seeing it. There's also another one opposite between the post office and Coles. Now, we have 3 perfectly good trees here, and if any township in Victoria had one tree like that, that'd have lights in it all the time. So I'd like to, if possible, to see the lights in at least one of those pine trees next Christmas, and put a lighting system in it that can be changed around and used throughout the year. It'd be nice also. It'd also be nice. We're missing Tiff Rayner's music in Myrtleford this year. I haven't heard any music going, Christmas carols in the township. If anything could be done, maybe, I don't know, but I haven't heard anything. Is there some going?
Thank you. Our CEO, Mr. Jeremy, will have a chat back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Dyer, for your question, and thank you to the audience for your input as well. Perhaps if I could share a bit of the background from my understanding, and please, councillors and directors, join in should you have additional information. So council does not play a role in delivering Christmas decorations in any of our town. So a number of years ago, council had a resolution to provide funding into the Chambers of Commerce. It provided an equal amount of funding, exactly equal, to the Chambers of Commerce of Myrtleford, Bright and Mount Beauty Toowoomba South. The Chambers of Commerce then took the initiative from that point to spend that money in whatever way they chose to support their communities with Christmas decorations. If you go to Mount Beauty, you'll see the Christmas tree that eventuated there, so some funding from the Shire, some great fundraising by the community. Council supports that initiative. We don't lead it, but we support the initiative in helping to put up and take down the Christmas tree, so that's Mount Beauty. If you look into Bright, very similar story. The community of Bright, Porpunka, the Upper Ovens, they took the money that was granted by council and they led the initiative themselves. They see the Christmas tree that eventuated took a lot of effort from an organisation up there, secured funding from the community. Council provides a bit of support, I think, into a tree in Porpunka, but largely the Bright's Christmas decorations are organised by the Chamber of Commerce up in the Upper Ovens. The Chamber of Commerce of Myrtleford received exactly the same amount of funding, and they determined on behalf of the community of Myrtleford how that funding was to be spent and how that was to be delivered into Myrtleford. So it's great feedback. We love your feedback. I think that's feedback that we're happy to share with the Chamber of Commerce on behalf of the community. And I'll just repeat, we provide exactly the same support into the communities in the Upper Ovens, Kiewa Valley and into Myrtleford. If you would like to lead an initiative as a community, we're happy to get behind you. We're happy to provide equivalent level support. We do assist in putting up the tree in Mount Beauty each year, taking it down, so the team in Mount Beauty works really closely with the community group there. And we're happy to do the same in Myrtleford should you require some support here with your decorations.
Thank you. Mr. Dyer, I believe you've asked 2 questions.
From it, the minutes of the meetings. Are you going to write the minutes up correctly and put question time in the minutes? I also asked for minutes last month, a copy of the minutes, but that never happened. And no talking about it or anything else. It's about time we started talking.
Thank you, Mr. Dyer. I'm happy to take that one on notice. I will note, however, that as you mentioned, this is a very long-standing issue. I think if we were to go back a couple of CEOs, you were talking about this issue in the minutes. But we'll certainly go back through the records. We'll establish an understanding of what was communicated back to you at that time, and we'll refresh that for you.
Melody.
Thank you, Mr. Dyer. Are there any further questions from the floor?
Is it working now? Yes. My name is Elvira Casagrande. I'm a volunteer at the Visitor Information Centre in Myrtleford. I've already sent emails to Councillor Dave Byrne and our CEO with regards to the future running of our Visitor Information Centre. My questions are, have you already you've already received our email and concerns with the disappointment to Beth as her role at the Visitor Information Centre and her departure. Have you already made a decision, or is there anything that we can say to convince you to change your minds? We as volunteers are still waiting for an answer, and we want to know the reason why for not renewing the contract. And as Beth's hours are just 16 hours per week, and if volunteers feel that we're not being listened or cared about, there are more than one that is thinking that we will probably just not continue on. And we just feel that our visitor centre has been run by volunteers as opposed to the Visitor Information Centre in Mount Beauty and in Bright. And as I've said to Councillor Dave Byrne, we are concerned going forward how many of us will continue being volunteers. So I would like some answers with regards to that. And as the four of us, plus there are others here tonight that would like to have some answers with regards to the future of our Visitor Information Centre. Thank you.
Thank you, Elvira, and really appreciate you standing up for the other volunteers. Would you like, I could ask our Director of Corporate and Community to respond first, or would you like to add something, sir? Is it another question, or is it a statement? Okay. Can we just take that, noting that you've supported for now, and then if you need to ask a question, that would be fantastic. And we'll ask Ms. Cook to respond. Yep. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for your input, and thank you very much to everybody who's volunteered over those years. It's really appreciated. Ms. Cook.
Thank you, Mrs. Casagrande, and thank you to all the volunteers who are here tonight. We very much appreciate and value our volunteers across all our centres, and we do realise the uniqueness of our Myrtleford VICs in that how volunteer-led we are. So with regard to the staffing, we had a temporary approved position in the establishment for a team leader in Myrtleford VIC. So that was always a temporary approved position, and that position was always due to finish this week. in the VIC. It was aligned with our budgets and our workforce plan going forward. So there's not been a change to the strategy for that position. It was never an ongoing position in the VICs. So that contract has ended in line with the temporary approval and budget for that position. So that's why that position is finalised. We have a VIC coordinator. That was a team leader position that sat between the volunteers and the coordinator. But we have a VIC coordinator who is assuming all responsibilities of that team lead position and will be based periodically throughout the week also here at the VIC. That coordinator position continues and they will assume the responsibilities of that team leader. I've talked to the manager and acting coordinator in that space at the moment, and they're going to ensure that they're around in the next little bit for drop-in sessions with all of you, so they can talk through the transition with you all, so you understand how the plans are being formulated going forward. All right. Thank you.
If there are further questions, you can come up to the microphone, state your name, where you're from, and ask a question.
Is that okay? Yeah. My name is Judy Fitzgerald. I'm one of the team of volunteers from the Visitor Information Centre. The answer that we just got is not what we wanted to hear. We are aware that all other centres are coordinated by full-time paid workers at the centre. We're relying on our goodwill as volunteers. We're being asked to almost coordinate it ourselves, and yet we're only in voluntary positions. And we believe that we're entitled to at least one full-time paid worker. That's all we're asking. And yet other centres have up to 8 paid workers working at the centres, and I'm not sure how many. I know some centres are running on 2 volunteers. We have 17 volunteers, but we're all feeling quite vulnerable about our future. We know that we cannot coordinate. We need someone who oversees the whole program. And without that one person, that's all we're asking, one fully staffed position. And we believe we've got a beautiful new centre and it's going to collapse. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your statement. Looks like we're having another statement. We might just take this one first, Ms Cook, and then you can respond. Yep.
I just wanted to say thank you, and we're very happy to take that feedback on board. I've not had that feedback previously, that there's been a request for...
Oh, sorry.
So I've not had that feedback previously, that there's a request for a full-time staff member at the VICs. That's never been raised with us or with me. I'm happy to take that feedback on board and have a look at how we operate the VIC in Myrtleford, understanding that there's a bit of a process to go through to put additional staffing into council. So it's not necessarily foregone that that's where this will go, but I'm happy to take that on board, meet with the manager of the area and the coordinator and work through plans going forward.
My name is Noel Thatcher. I live in Myrtleford. I'm a volunteer at the VIC. We believe we're being ignored in Myrtleford, and we're happy that you may consider that what you've just said, because we're the gateway. People pull in here first and often ask about Bright, and we're filling them in and that. So Myrtleford needs a lot more attention from the Shire at the Vic Centre and need a full-time coordinator. As the previous speaker said, we're down to 17 volunteers now. We did start with 43 when it was taken over from the log cabin, the Ponderosa, and it's very hard to get volunteers. and we get some, they last a little while and they go because of the problem. They're doubling up on shifts and not getting the support they need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll take that question as, could we please have consideration for some paid staff, and Ms Cook will take that away. Do you want to respond again? Yep.
I just wanted to say thank you very much, and I agree. What a beautiful centre you have here as a gateway. Absolutely amazing. You've done a great job in setting it up as well. Thank you.
And I'm just going to add thank you everyone for coming and expressing what your concerns are. Any further questions from the floor? Yep. Up to the microphone, state your name again.
Oh, hear me. This is not about the information centre. Oh, it's Lisa Gunson from Myrtleford. Probably pest at the moment. This is not about the information centre, although I do work there and I totally agree. I'm just we've got a beautiful splash park. It's a beautiful place. At the moment, it's leaking water, and it's been leaking water and drips things. I sent photos to David, and David's responded. Thank you very much. The concern is, and I've asked a few, and I've actually asked a few council workers too, where it's placed, there's the river. We need fencing between the splash park and the river, because if you're a mother, I haven't got any kids, but if you're a mother and you take your eyes off your kids one day, and kids are vital or not, they can race down there and go down to the river. Now, I've asked, a lot of people have said the same things. It's great, and it's great, wonderful for the town, but we really need a barrier of some sort or something to keep, and it's busy road as well. So where a lot of people in town are very scared the fact that if a kid runs across the road, and they do, they might get hit.
Thank you, Lisa. I will pass that as a potential request to Ms Buckley.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for the feedback. We are aware of the leak. It's actually a solenoid. They've investigated it. We're waiting for the part to come in to fix it. We did also have the same issue with the Bright Splash Park and thought that these solenoids were better, but clearly not. So that should be fixed imminently. In relation to the fence, we certainly take that on notice. I have had that request from other members of the community, and our Capital Works Coordinator is looking at what we can achieve down there to improve the safety.
Thank you, Ms Buckley. Any further questions from the floor? No. Again, thank you. Terrific attendance. Much appreciated. I move on to item 9, which is presentation of reports by officers, and item 9.1, Chief Executive Officer Mr Jeremy, election of Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So this item relates to the election of the Mayor. Due to the vacancy in the position of the Mayor, an election process will be conducted to appoint a Mayor for the remainder of the 2025-26 mayoral term in accordance with Council's governance rules. The Local Government Act 2020 sets out the requirements for the election of the Mayor. Section 25(1) of the Local Government Act requires the meeting to elect the Mayor to be open to the public, which it is this evening, and any councillor is eligible for election or re-election to the office of the Mayor. The role of the Mayor is described in Section 18 of the Local Government Act. It's included in the agenda. I won't read this out to you. And also Section 19 of the Local Government Act 2020 sets out the specific powers of the Mayor, which is also included in the agenda, but I won't read that either. With no further discussion, I'm going to move to calling for nominations and a seconder for the office of the Mayor, which is in accordance with Chapter 2 of Council's governance rules. So,
You turn your microphone off.
sorry?
Oh, when you're ready.
Yeah, when I'm ready. So I would like to call for a nomination for the position of Mayor.
Are we good to go? Yeah. I'd just like to nominate Councillor Sarah Nichols, please. Nicholas.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson, for nominating Councillor Nicholas for the position of Mayor. Could I ask if I have a seconder for that nomination? Councillor Graham, thank you for seconding that nomination. Councillor Nicholas, I'd like to ask if you accept that nomination.
I do.
Councillors, I'd like to ask if there are any further nominations for the position of Mayor, please. Councillor Byrne.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Ronco.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne, for your nomination of Councillor Ronco to the position of Mayor. Could I ask whether we have a councillor to second that nomination? Councillors? So I do not have a seconder for that nomination, so that nomination falls away. Councillors, I'd like to ask whether there are any further nominations for the position of Mayor. Councillors, I have no further nominations, so this evening we have one nomination for the Mayor, which is a nomination made by Councillor Anderson, seconded by Councillor Graham, and that's for Councillor Nicholas to be the Mayor. This is a single nomination which has been seconded and accepted. A vote is therefore not taken, and the councillor nominated will be declared elected to the office of Mayor. Councillor Nicholas, I would like to invite you as the incoming Mayor to address the Council this evening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jeremy, for the invitation. Thank you for the nomination from the councillors, and I really appreciate the support and confidence in me. I'm inspired by that, and I wanted to talk about, I think the most is how as a, we still have a lot to learn as a group about being a councillor, about being a really good council, about working together and about working with our community. But what I wanted to also just mention is the incredible courage that Councillor Graham exhibited and integrity to stand aside after he'd found out a bit more about what a mayor's role actually entails. And it's really important that we engage, make decisions for the whole municipal community with empathy and understanding, but on a foundation of exemplary governance. And that takes time and experience to be able to wield that and understand that. And I think that it's there's some really good potential leaders sitting at this bench, and by the end of this term there'll be other people in this chair, I have no doubt, and I think that's where we need to be going. But I appreciate the capacity to be able to continue to work with the community into the future. I look forward to driving advocacy during this next year as an election year. We've got some really important community matters that we've identified through the council plan and that we continue to identify with our community. Things like affordable housing, childcare, hospitals and other health, aged care, you guys know it all, transport, and then just being able to maintain and improve our community infrastructure, which is why we've produced the Community Infrastructure Needs Assessment report, so that we can see how we can set the priorities and go forward. So we need money behind that, and that's where advocacy is really important. I have other aims for the year, including getting the council future ready. We know we have awful disasters. They might be economic or environmental. We know we need to be ready for them. So it's about being on the front foot, because we don't know how deeply the shocks will reverberate, but we know our communities are going to be affected by them. I also have a passion to improve the community understanding of civic process across the Shire, and I invite my councillors, the other councillors, to work with me to work with the communities to help to improve understanding, help them to contribute, and such as has been done tonight. And I believe that will improve our reputation and rebuild trust. I think it's really important that we listen to the vision, ideas and concerns of our community and help people with solutions about how to put those forward. So that's probably enough from me. Again, I really appreciate all the effort that the councillors have put in over this last year. It's been a huge year, getting all the things that we required to do under the Local Government Act in place. And now we're going to have some time to really start to drive the council plan, drive the advocacy and get to where we want to be. So thank you. And I think now I take over as seek a Deputy Mayor. Because as people know, I have been a Deputy Mayor, and now that I'm the Mayor, I can't be the Deputy Mayor anymore. So I'm no longer the Deputy Mayor. So, sorry, I have got a new badge, but I won't get it yet. Thank you. Instant change. And then we move on to the election of the Deputy Mayor. Very similar to the way Mr. Jeremy introduced the election of the Mayor. As there's no longer a Deputy Mayor, we need to hold an election. The Deputy Mayor has limited legislated functions, but plays a very important role supporting not just the Mayor but the other councillors and working with the executive in a similar way to the Mayor and with the Mayor to support the councillors. So, under legislation, the role of the Deputy Mayor, roles and powers, that the Mayor is, if the Mayor is unable for any reason to attend a council meeting or part of a council meeting, the Deputy Mayor steps in. If the Mayor is incapable of performing the duties of the office of Mayor or for any reason, including illness, or the office of Mayor is vacant, the Deputy Mayor steps up. So at this point in time, I would like to call for nominations and a seconder for the office of Deputy Mayor in accordance with Chapter 2 of Council's governance rules, and I have Mr. Jeremy with the governance rules open right next to him just in case we need them. So, any nominations for the position of Deputy Mayor? Councillor Byrne.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Gareth Graham.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Gareth Graham has been nominated as a Deputy Mayor. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Tansen. Thank you. Do we have any other nominations? Oh, sorry. Councillor Graham, do you accept?
Yes, I do accept the nomination. Thank you.
Sorry about that. You've already been married. Do I have any further nominations for the office of Deputy Mayor? Councillor Tansen.
I'd like to nominate Councillor John Anderson.
Thank you, Councillor Tansen. Councillor John Anderson has been nominated. Do we have a seconder? Right then. So there is no seconder. So we have one confirmed nomination that's been accepted for the office of Deputy Mayor, and that is Councillor Gareth Graham. So I now... Oh, sorry, I also need to ask if there's any further nominations. Sorry. Gosh, I'm not very good at this, am I? I don't do it often enough. No further nominations. Nope, just waiting for the gap. Okay. So I now will continue. We only have one nomination that has been accepted and seconded. So I now, what's the word? Confirm that Councillor Gareth Graham is the Deputy Mayor for the rest of this term. The rest of this year. Thank you. Now, because we have had a change in the Mayor and Deputy Mayor, we have also put 9.1.3, which is appointment of councillors to represent council on committees and boards, back on the agenda, even though we had it last month. And I just wanted to open that for the CEO to talk to.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this item relates to appointment of councillors to represent council on committees and boards. In the November 2025 Ordinary Council meeting, councillors were appointed as council's delegate on various committees and groups in order to enable good governance and decision-making for the 2025-26 financial year. Following the election of the Mayor, in item 8.1.1 of this meeting agenda, it is appropriate for council to now affirm its representation on these committees and groups. So essentially, we're giving council an opportunity to state that they're still supportive of the positions that were appointed back in November, or to make changes should they wish to. So the recommendation is that council affirms the appointment of councillors as council's delegate on the following groups and committees, and those are as shown up on the screen there. And I suggest or recommend that council runs through those one by one and confirms them. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Jeremy. So Municipal Association of Victoria remains the Mayor and Deputy Mayor. It's just changed the names around. Hume Region Local Government Network remains the Mayor. It's a question really, if anybody's got any. I'll just read it through. If anybody would like to suggest something different, then please jump in. CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee, Mayor, Deputy Mayor and Councillor John Anderson. Rural Councils of Victoria, Mayor, Tongarong Local Government Forum, the Mayor, Alpine Shire Council Audit and Risk Committee, Councillor Byrne and Councillor Smith. And all other councils are welcome to attend those committee meetings. Alpine Children's Services, in Councillor John Anderson. Goulburn Murray Climate Alliance, Councillor Gareth Graham and Councillor John Anderson. Alpine Resilience Partnership, Councillor Jean-Pierre Ronco and Councillor Noah Tanzen. North East Local Government Waste and Recovery Forum, Councillor Gareth Graham. Everybody comfortable with what's been put forward? In which case we will take that to, can't get the page, take that to the vote. The recommendation affirms the appointment of councillors as council's delegate on the following groups of committees, as I just read. Councillors, could I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Tanzen, seconded by Councillor Graham. Councillor Tanzen, anything to add? Councillor Graham?
No. I think it's good that people remain on the same council group for a while, at least, to maintain some stability.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? No? Take this to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. It's carried. Unanimous. Okay, here we go. Magic sheets. Item 9.1.4 is contracts approved under delegation by the CEO, and I will hand over to Mr. Jeremy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the recommendation this evening is that the capital projects contracts which are approved under delegation by the CEO be noted. There are two capital project contracts which have been approved under my delegation. So the CEO is granted a delegation of $200,000 plus GST. So that allows me up to that value to sign contracts, and beyond that value it must come to council for a decision. So tonight we're noting two contracts which have been signed under delegation. The first is a contract for the Kirban Channel Renewal 2025, and the successful tenderer is McPherson's Earth Moving from Myrtleford. We budgeted $170,000 for these works, and the contract was awarded at $149,352 through a public RFQ, request for quotation process. That's the first recommendation. And then the second one relates to Mount Beauty cricket nets. The successful tenderer here was Gabba. They're a Brisbane-based organisation with an Albury presence. So this is an interesting one. This project was actually unbudgeted this year, so Council did not approve a budget for this project when it set the annual budget back at the end of 2024-25. Council had applied for a grant funding late last financial year and was successful in securing $175,000 from Sport and Recreation Victoria, so that's from the state government. We received notification of this successful grant funding after the budget had been set, so therefore it's not included in Council's budget for this year. As part of that grant funding application, we've had a commitment of $15,000 to be contributed by the Albury-Wodonga Cricket Club and a further $5,000 to be contributed by the Mount Beauty Cricket Club. So that brings you up to a total amount of funding of $195,000. The amount of the contract which has been awarded under delegation is $194,980, and Council's contribution to the cost of this project is zero. So the recommendation tonight is that these capital project contracts approved by the CEO under delegation be noted by Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy. Councillors. Moved by Councillor Ronco, seconded Councillor Smith. Councillor Ronco. Oh, sorry, I'm on.
That will work. Thank you. Just a question regarding these two contracts to the CEO or the director, just to know exactly where and when this work will be conducted. So the first one for the curb and channel renewal 25-26, and after on the Mount Beauty cricket net, to know when it will be conducted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. The curb and channel renewal works will be completed in Myrtleford this year. It's a roaming program that goes around each town every year, and I believe that it's about to start just before Christmas, and then they take a break, and it'll be carried out early in the new year across January, February and March. The second project is obviously being carried out in Mount Beauty, and it's due for completion at the end of February.
Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, that sort of covers a little bit of mine, but just probably for the benefit for our gallery tonight, which is a great turnout. Thank you very much, Myrtleford community. How much work, curb and channel, and what areas can you explain where we'll be looking to do this work?
Thank you, Councillor Smith. As mentioned, it's being carried out in Myrtleford, and it's approximately 330 lineal metres. It also does include driveway laybacks and pit lids as part of the work as well when we're moving through the curb and channel. I don't have the exact streets in front of me at the moment, but I can take it on notice and bring it back to the next council meeting.
Yep. Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. Do any other councillors have anything to add?
Director Buckley, 195,000 seems quite a considerable cost for cricket nets. Could you explain how many nets we're getting and why such an expense?
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. It does seem a lot. They were the most affordable of all four contractors by quite a margin. Also highly qualified and able to do the works. It does involve excavation as well as significant concrete works, plus synthetic grass, plus new mesh nets as well. So across 3 nets, and it doesn't take long to add up with the price of all of those materials.
Any further questions or comments? No. Councillors, will take this one to the vote. The recommendation that the capital project contracts approved under delegation by the CEO be noted. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. The next item is 9.1.5, rate cap non-compliance. Mr. Jeremy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's been identified by the Essential Services Commission annual rate cap reconciliation process that Council is non-compliant to the rate cap for 2025-26. Tonight I'm going to explain the reason for this non-compliance and propose a recommendation to Council for the rectification to be undertaken. So the amount that Council can increase its average rates in a year without seeking government approval is subject to a cap. And each year the Minister for Local Government sets that cap. It sets a cap on the average rates for the following rating year by a general order. For 2025-26, the rate cap was set at 3%. So what that means is, if you think of the pool of rates that Council gets in a year, the government said you cannot increase that pool of rates from your ratepayers by more than 3%. Unfortunately, this year we exceeded that rate cap, and I want to try and explain to you how that happened and what we're going to do about that. In order to do that, I need to give you a little bit of history in relation to Dinner Plain, because the challenge that we had relates to removing a special rate which has been applied to the residents of the Dinner Plain village. Now, the special rate has been applied in Dinner Plain for many, many years, 20 plus years, possibly back as far as 1992, but certainly for a long time. And that special rate was put in place at the time to gain extra income from the Dinner Plain residents to support the delivery of services which are of special benefit to the Dinner Plain community, so largely related to their location and the climate up there. So for many years, Council collected extra revenue through a special rate, and it used it to fund snow clearing, snow grooming of trails, running a bus service. It had a manager located up there, so staff located in Dinner Plain. It had extra funding going into events and into marketing. So that was many years ago. Over time, Council has made decisions which have gradually reduced the amount of that special rate down to the point where the amount that a Dinner Plain resident was being paid, irrespective of how their property was rated, was exactly the same as it was elsewhere in the Shire. However, there's a key difference in that the special rate sits outside the rates bucket that the local government sets the rate cap on. So we were collecting some rates here from Dinner Plain special rate payers, and we were collecting the rest of our rates from the rest of the rateable properties across the Shire, including the residential properties in Dinner Plain. So we had an anomaly. In March this year, we presented a recommendation to Council, which Council accepted to address that anomaly. We said it's no longer fair and equitable that we have a special rate applied in Dinner Plain when the ratepayers in Dinner Plain are essentially subject to the same amount of rates payable as residents elsewhere in the Shire. Council had determined over time that those so-called special services were actually part of living in the Shire. So, for example, snow clearing happens in Dinner Plain, there is a cost there, but equally, if you come down to the valleys, we pay for leaf clearing. So we don't charge a special rate for clearing leaves off the street. Therefore, there was a position taken by Council that things we'd historically been charging a special rate for were actually core services associated with residents living in that Shire. And they shouldn't be disadvantaged through the rates because of the climate that they live in or because of the location. So over time, Council had taken decision to reduce the special rate to the point where it was really no longer providing a special benefit to the residents of Dinner Plain. And the recommendation we provided in March was to eliminate that special rate, so that residents in Dinner Plain were brought within the big bucket of rates rather than having a part of their rating sitting outside. We did this because we believed, or Council believed, it was more equitable for the residents of Dinner Plain, because if you capture their rating inside the big bucket of rates that the government fixes a cap, it limits Council's ability then to make arbitrary increases into the future, and it brings a level of clarity to the residents of Dinner Plain, because over time, this special rates become a bit of a myth and legend. People don't really understand why it was put in place or what it was aiming to achieve. So, March this year, Council determined it was going to eliminate the special rate in Dinner Plain and bring those commercial properties within the envelope of the overall rate. All well and good up until this point. Council also determined it was going to forego the little bit of revenue, so the $167,000 of revenue that it had been accruing through a rating on the commercial properties up there. It said, we're going to bring those properties fully inside our big rating bucket, and they're going to be subject to exactly the same rating as the rest of the Shire. So that was the principle. And it was a good one, and Council said, we'll forego some income in order to achieve an equitable outcome for the Shire. That was back in March. Our team set about implementing this directive from council. We set up the rating system. It required a change in our software to bring properties which had been partially rated outside the rate cap into the rate cap. We put the changes in place. We confirmed with the vendor that those changes wouldn't take place until the 1st of July at the start of the new year. And we believed as we headed into the new financial year that our rating had all been set up properly. However, what had actually happened in practice is that the changes had been implemented from the date at which they were prepared in the system. So essentially, we changed our rates database in March last year instead of doing it on the 1st of July. And that is what caused the error. So we apologise for that. That was an error that I made through my team. We made an error in the way that we set up the rating system for this year. And second to that, because of the way the error occurred, which was part of the way through last year, we didn't pick it up when we checked 30th of June to 1st of July, which is what we always do to check that we've stayed within the rate cap. We didn't pick it up because the error had been made earlier in the year. So the error is to an amount of $167,000. It was the amount that council had agreed to forego by correcting the Dinner Plain special rate. The outcome was that it wasn't foregone. It was charged to the ratepayers. It was brought in within the big bubble, and it resulted in that big bubble growing by 3.96% last year instead of the 3% that the government allowed. So we made a mistake. The amount of the mistake was $168,000. There are about 9,000 rateable properties in the Shire, so the amount it's equivalent to is about $18.50 per Shire. And we appreciate that. For some people, that's a significant amount of money, and it's money that council should not have taken off ratepayers this year. We apologise for that. That was our mistake. So the question then is, what can we do about it? And what I want to explain now, I've heard a lot of queries in the community: fix it up, sort it out, pay it back. And we'd love to be able to do that. But what we have with our rating system is a very, very challenging system to retrospectively calculate. So we have a rating system which is essentially a living organic beast. On the 1st of July, it has a certain amount of information and type of information. Then every time someone's property changes, it changes the data in the database. So if you have a rating that you challenge through the state government for your property and the state government accepts that, it makes a change, it changes the database. If you have a new house that you build, or you complete building of a pool or an extension or a shed on your property, it changes the database where all the rates data sits. And what it means is it becomes exceptionally difficult to wind the clock back to the 1st of July and to say, okay, we're going to reset the clock, pretend this didn't happen, recast all our rates, issue a rates notice out to everyone, because the system has moved beyond the point where we can do that with the current software system. So unfortunately, what I'm sharing with councils tonight is we are unable to sensibly correct this mistake at this point in time. Much as I appreciate the community's desire that we would do that, we cannot do that at this point in time. So our proposal for council tonight, which is captured in the recommendation, is that we fix this problem when the rates and charges are declared for the next financial year, that council charges or sets a level of rates which is 0.96% below where it otherwise would have done had this error not occurred. So essentially it reverses the error that we, the officers, have introduced this year into the rating system. So recommendation tonight is that council notes that we've made an unintentional non-compliance to the rate cap for 25-26, and that council declares rates and charges for the 26-27 financial year at an amount that is no more than $168,713 below the amount of the rates and charges which would have been raised if council was to apply the full rate cap as permitted under the Fair Go rate system set by the Minister for Local Government. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy. We understand that it's not a fabulously it's quite a complex matter. Yep. So I really appreciated your explanation. Could we have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation, please? Moved by Councillor Graham, seconded Councillor Smith. Councillor Graham.
The rates are actually quite a complex, and we've collectively as a group, we've spent quite a bit of time trying to get our heads around this as well. So I think this is the best we can actually all hope for, is to correct it all next year.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Councillor Smith.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank the work and effort put in. If this is a mistake, we've all been very transparent and come back to the community with, but when we when we work out the figures, and I've had this explanation with a lot of people, when we talk an average of $18 per property, yeah, and hopefully what the CEO has just explained tonight, it is a very complex issue how to explain. So, but anyone out there that wants to speak one-on-one, come in, talk to us individually. You know, that's something. But it's we admit we've been upfront, but yeah, and do apologise for the community's had a lot of noise about that, and I yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Do any other councillors have something to say? Councillor Byrne.
For the benefit of the gallery, Mr. Jeremy, is it possible just to refund $18.50 to each property?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Byrne. It would result in an inequitable outcome to refund $18.50 to every property. So $18.50 is the amount that we've overcharged the average ratepayer. So if you have a property which has an average value in the Alpine Shire, you've been overcharged by $18.50. If you have a property that is valued at more than the average, you've been overcharged by more than the average. And if it's less than the average property value, it's less. So if we were to just take 9,000 properties and send a cheque out for $18 to every property, it wouldn't result in an equitable outcome for our ratepayers.
We'll see if a councillor asks that question. Any further questions from councillors? Councillor Ronco.
Thank you. Yes, yeah, we have made a mistake, and we need to be front forward with our residents and rectify this mistake in a fair and appropriate way. So just if we follow the recommendation for tonight on the option 3, I just wanted to know how property sold in 2025-2026 will be affected.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. I'm actually going to ask whether Director of Corporate and Community Natalie Cook could respond to that one.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy, and thank you for the question, Councillor Ronco. As the rectification will occur in 2026-27, there'll be no refunds applied to properties in 25-26, which means that if your property is sold during 2025 and 2026, then that rate benefit will go to the property when the new rates are assessed in the 26-27 year.
Thank you.
Any further questions from councillors? No. There was a question from the floor which I'm going to ask. What about interest on the $18.50? Director of Corporate and Community, thank you.
We have actually, thank you, Madam Mayor. We have actually considered interest in quite some detail, and as you probably aren't going to be surprised to hear, it's actually reasonably complex itself. The way that the rectification will occur at 26-27 is across the whole of the rating pool. It is not at an individual assessment level. So what it will mean is that when we are striking the rate in the dollar for the calculation for 2026 and 2027, we will strike a different rate in the dollar than we would have struck if we weren't rectifying the amount that we were raising. So we don't end up with an individual assessment that says this individual property was overcharged by this particular amount, so we can't calculate an interest amount on that amount. Does that make sense? Because it is an overall rate in the dollar calculation, the rectification is also occurring across the whole of the rating pool. In addition to that, though, we have undertaken some calculations on a few very different, using very different scenarios for interest. So there are a few different ways that interest could be gained on this money. If we took the entirety of the money of $168,713 and we assumed it is entirety, that we've raised that money and we've had it in our bank account for a year, and we are receiving the standard cash rate interest on that bank account, and we have had it for the year, which we know we won't because rates are paid in instalments. But even so, it's actually only a few $100s of interest that we're raising on that. Rate's in the entirety of the amount. If we take the calculation as a non-payment interest calculation and we say, okay, if we were to say that the people who are being charged the $168,713 in totality across the Shire, if 100% of them did not pay that amount on their rates and we were charging them interest, for the totality of the year, which again isn't how it occurs because it's actually charged on non-payment across quarters, then how much interest would we be charging? We've made that calculation as well, and actually the calculation is still quite a small amount. So when we've tried to balance those calculations, what would work and how it would apply to an individual assessment level, the amount of administration and work that would be required in order to enact that is really quite difficult. So we have determined at this time not to recommend the repayment of interest on that amount.
Thank you, Director Cook. Do we have further comments or questions? Yes. Councillor Graham.
Thank you. My understanding under the Essential Services Commission, we're not actually required to repay. Can you just confirm that that's correct?
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Yes, it's an interesting component of the rate cap, that the rate cap is a requirement of the Minister for Local Government, but there is no requirement for Council to rectify this. We are required to explain to the Essential Service Commission how the error occurred, or how we raised more rates than the rate cap, and to let them know what our plans are, but Council could choose to not rectify and simply it be absorbed into the rate base. Yes.
Thank you, Director Cook. Further discussion? Councillor Tanzin.
Yeah, do we know if any other councils have breached the rate cap?
Thank you, Councillor Tanzin. Yes, there was one other council in this rating year that has had a reported breach of the rate cap in the Essential Services Commission report. And that council is also intending, my understanding on reading the Essential Services Commission report, on rectifying in the next financial year. However, to be transparent, their breach was significantly smaller in value than ours.
Councillor Anderson.
The body that, what was it called? Essential Services, they notified us of the breach. How was it that they saw the breach and we didn't?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson, and that is a very good question. So the Essential Services Commission, when we put in our compliance reports to the Essential Services Commission every year, we put in a report from a June snapshot report of our data from prior to the rate cap, the increase being implemented, and we put in a rates data report from after the rate cap being implemented. The Essential Services Commission undertook greater data analysis than we did and went back to previous years' data, and they identified that we had too many properties in one data classification.
So that would have led to them further investigating, finding out how much the breach was. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Tanzin again.
How can we avoid doing this again in the future?
Thank you, Councillor Tanzin. We are currently awaiting some advice from our system vendor as to how this advice was given to us. We've yet to receive that. We are developing an internal procedure for how to make bulk changes in the system that will assist us in ensuring that the lessons from this are not lost, and so we can ensure that if in the future we're required to make significant changes to our database, we are in a better position to understand the system requirements for that. Having said that, there is no anticipation of us making a change like this again in our database. This is a reasonably unique situation.
Thank you, Director Cook. Councillor Byrne.
With the special rate raised upon dinner plane, it was held in a special account, correct? Does that still exist, and what will become of that dinner plane fund?
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. So I believe that you are referring to the Dinner Plain Reserve. So at the time when we recommended to Council to bring Dinner Plain into our revenue and rating strategy review for 2025, which is the change that was made to the definitions that included Dinner Plain in the definition that brought it in under the rate cap in totality, we also put up a report to Council to determine the ongoing use of the Dinner Plain Reserve. We then put up a report to Council for the end of the financial year that indicated what items would be accounted for out of the Dinner Plain Reserve for the 2025-2026 financial year. As a part of the rating strategy change, income is no longer being attributed to the Dinner Plain Reserve. We will continue to account approved Council expenditure from a Council resolution from that reserve until such time as the Dinner Plain Reserve is at zero, and it will then be closed.
Thank you. Great questions and discussion, councillors. Anything further before we take it to the vote? We'll put this one to the vote, the recommendation as it's up on the board. All those in favour? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Our next report is 9.1.6, Alpine Shire Council Organisational Values. Mr. Jeremy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Alpine Shire Council has undertaken a review of its organisational values as part of a broader piece of work around cultural transformation of the organisation. These values are designed to guide organisational culture and to define how we engage with our community, with each other and with the councillors. They underpin how we lead, communicate, solve problems and make decisions. So if I give you a bit of context, we've kicked off an initiative in Council about 18 months ago now to look at the culture that we have within the organisation, because we got some indicators of potentially a poor culture in some parts of the organisation, some challenges in how we were running the organisation. We also saw through the post-COVID period, we saw very high turnover of staff. So we had some indicators that all was not healthy within the organisation, and we undertook a piece of work, which is still ongoing, to look at how do we build a really healthy culture within the organisation. One of the pillars of this cultural transformation was looking at the values that are shared by the organisation. So if I roll the clock back to 2014, a decision made by Council at a meeting in 2014, there were a set of values which were established for the organisation and were adopted by Council. And those values were neatly aligned to the acronym ALPINE. They were accountable, leadership, productive, integrity, nurture, and engage. So those are the values that were adopted by Council 10 years ago or 11 years ago back in 2014. As time has rolled on, the organisation, the staff that work beneath me have felt less and less alignment and have drifted further from those values. And they've felt that they no longer reflected that how the staff were working in their day-to-day in the organisation. And as part of the cultural transformation work, we set about looking at a refresh of those values. What's important is the way we went about it. We didn't sit with the councillor group, we didn't sit with the executive and say these are the values of the organisation. We empowered the staff to make their own decisions and debates and to propose a set of values which were established through collaboration across the organisation. So I didn't sit at a table and say these are the values, neither did my directors and neither did council. We established a little working group of volunteers in the organisation, and they went out across the organisation and they sought feedback. And they workshopped a set of multiple different sets of values, and ultimately they've arrived on the recommendation that I'm putting to Council this evening. And the recommendation to Council this evening is that the organisation, or that Council endorses a new set of organisational values being innovation, collaboration, accountability, respect and empowerment. And also that Council acknowledges the work which is in progress to transform the culture of the organisation, and it continues to extend its support and encouragement to this initiative which is underway within the organisation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy. Councillors, mover and seconder. Moved, Councillor Anderson. Seconded, Councillor Tanzin. Councillor Anderson.
It's good to see the involvement of the staff in taking sort of a grassroots approach to this. I would congratulate them on the work that they've done. I know that they've been into council briefing before and discussed the work that they were doing to keep us up to speed. It's it's really good to see. I know that the staff that we've met over the last 12 months have a real earnest wish to sort of serve their community and do well in their job. And I think that this can go a long way to sort of helping grow that and result in better results for our community because through the service they provide. Thank you.
We have to coordinate, don't we? Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Councillor Tansen.
Councillor Anderson summed that up pretty well. Nothing to add.
Thank you. Any other councillors have anything they'd like to contribute? Councillor Ronco.
I believe that this new set of organizational value reflect better aspiration for council staff to deliver better outcome to residents and visitors. So it's really a good thing for everyone, I think, and especially for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. Anybody else? No. I'd just like to comment myself on the I care values. I think they're absolutely wonderful, and I wanted to make comment on how important it is for the council to work with those values too once the staff have embedded them and got the behaviours sorted through, and I really look forward to supporting the culture of the organisation by supporting the values. So, on that note, unless any councillors have got anything else to add, I will take this one to the vote. Recommendation as it stands on the board. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. We move on now to the Director of Corporate and Community, Ms. Cook, and I know it's still really riveting, but if people would like to leave, this is probably a good chance and we'll give you a few minutes. There's some really fabulous stuff coming up though. Okay, thank you everybody who's remained. Item 9.2.1, Director Corporate and Community Ms. Cook, Audit and Risk Committee minutes of meeting number 2025-26-3.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I apologise for losing the gallery when it comes to my reports at this stage. This report relates to item 9.2.1, being the Audit and Risk Committee meeting minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of November 2025. The committee met in November and considered several key items, as well as regular quarterly reports and standing items. An overview of all the key items considered by the committee are outlined in the published report. However, they include internal audit on procurement. The committee received the findings of the 2025 internal audit on Council's procurement processes and controls undertaken by Council's internal audit provider, Crow. The audit made seven recommendations to implement additional or improve existing controls to reduce identified weaknesses and exposures. And to confirm, implementation of these recommendations are all now in progress. In addition, the committee received reports on Council's adoption of its financial plan 2025 to 2035 and the financial sustainability strategy 2025 to 2029, as well as a report by the Victorian Auditor General's Office on the financial management of local councils. Standing reports on the Capital Works and Asset Management Steering Group were also presented to the committee. The recommendation is that Council receives and notes the unconfirmed minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting number 2025-26-3, which was held on the 21st of November 2025.
Thank you, Ms Cook. I think it's been rapidly moved by Councillor Byrne. Thank you. A seconder? Councillor Anderson. Councillor Byrne.
I'd like to commend the Audit and Risk Committee on identifying and establishing the first internal audit. It certainly proved very valuable, and I hope it's a valuable operation moving forward.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Anderson. Nothing to add there. Councillor Ronco.
Thank you. Once again, it was great to attend this important committee meeting. In the year, I have learned a lot about risk and audit management. I find a recurrent constant that I make is to identify the why when a mistake or incomplete work happens and what we do to fix it and to prevent it in the future. It is for me how to be better in a proactive way than a reactive way. I would like to thank to this committee to help us to be better and to deliver a better outcome to our community. It's a very great committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. Further comment from councillors? I'm going to add something too. I went to this particular meeting. I haven't been to an Audit and Risk Committee meeting for quite some time, but I'd sat on the committee for at least 4 years in the past. And what I really liked is one of the members kept asking why. And I think it's a really good question. And so, yes, picking up what Councillor Ronco was saying. Okay, no further comment. We will take this one to the vote. Recommendations on the board. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. And we move on to 9.2.2, Quarterly Budget Report. Ms Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Report 9.2.2 is the quarterly budget report for Quarter 1, 2025 to 26. The purpose of this report is to provide Council with the overview of the financial position of Council for the period ending on the 30th of September 2025. Council is forecasting a full year deficit of $125,000, which is significantly lower than budgeted, being 2.2 or 2.3 million. The main reason for this is because of the forecast reduced income that is being reflected in this report, which is being caused by us receiving the financial assistance grant from the federal government in the end of 2024-25 rather than in the beginning of 2025-26. So although this report and the quarter report in detail is reflecting a significant reduction in income, it is because that income was already received in the prior year's financial report. The recommendation is that Council receives and notes the quarterly budget report for Quarter 1 for the period ending the 30th of September 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Cook. Moved Councillor Ronco. Seconder, Councillor Graham. Councillor Ronco.
Thank you. Just do Quarter 2 will give us a more accurate picture on the financial year results.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. And yes, Quarter 1, as you'll see in the report, there's generally not a lot of movement in Quarter 1 reporting, and so we can expect there to be more reporting on financial changes between the budget and our Quarter 2 actuals. As you can imagine, you develop a budget over a long period of time. The budget is adopted for the 1st of July, and it takes a little bit of time for us then to work through implementation of the actions that we've budgeted for. So we can expect to see more changes in the Q2 report, and they will accumulate, and the changes you see in this report will accumulate through the quarters. So you'll continue to see commentary on us receiving the financial assistance grant early, and we will add additional commentary as to how things have changed throughout the year.
Thank you. Yep, I'm looking forward to the Q2 and 3. So, yep, thank you.
Councillor Graham.
Thank you. The fact that the government gave us the money a little early, it's a bit unlike the governments to start with, but I'm sure the 79 councils in Victoria, and we've all had the same problem with now having to change budgets or update the budgets because the money came in early.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Yes, it's an accurate observation. Everyone will be in the same position and be reporting the same deficit issues with their income. Unfortunately, it is hard for us to predict when we're going to receive the financial assistance grant, and every year it's a little bit of a surprise when it arrives. It would be lovely if it always arrived in the first quarter of the new financial year.
Thank you. Further comments or questions from councillors? No? We'll take this one to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. We move on to 9.2.3, the Emergency Services and Volunteer Fund remittances. Ms Cook.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Item 9.2.3 being the Emergency Services and Volunteer Fund remittances. Council's required to collect the Emergency Services and Volunteer Fund revenue from ratepayers and remit collected funds to the State Revenue Office on a quarterly basis. This report provides a breakdown of the funds remitted in October 2025, and from here on in, I'm going to refer to this as the ESVF. The Emergency Services and Volunteer Fund Act of 2012 was formerly the Fire Service Property Levy Act of 2012. And it states that councils are required to remit funds within 28 days of the date that the ratepayers are due to pay their rates for the first quarter payment, which was due by 20th of September. The last date that Alpine Shire Council can remit these funds to the State Government Office is therefore the 28th of October. State Revenue Office. On the 28th of October this year, Council remitted the amount of $1,419,560.63 in ESVF payments to the State Revenue Office or the SRO. This payment may include funds which are collected in the first quarter relating to the 2025-2026 rate cycle, and also any outstanding FSPL funds from the 2024-2025 rate cycle. A summary of the funds that were remitted to the state government in comparison to the Fire Services Property Levy funds is contained in a table in your report, and as you can see, we have included in that table the FSPL or Fire Services Property Levy payments for 24-25 for each of the remittance quarters, understanding that we will be updating this report each quarter to compare the amount remitted for the ESVF. And you can see the difference in the amounts remitted for the first quarter and the two different funds that were paid to the government. The recommendation is that Council notes the payments to the State Revenue Office collected by Council under the auspices of the Emergency Services and Volunteer Fund. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Cook. Councillors. Moved Councillor Byrne, seconded Councillor Ronco. Councillor Byrne.
I note an additional payment of $50,000 was provided to Council to undertake the ESVF work. Will that be an ongoing payment?
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. The state government provided us this year with two different payments with regards to administering the ESVF, There is a component which has been ongoing for some time for us to administer the FSPL payment, and that had continued this year. However, the state government also provided us with $50,000 in addition to that in recognition of the additional resourcing and work to implement this program. We do not expect that additional $50,000 to be paid to us ongoing. We expect it to be a once-off.
Councillor Ronco.
Thank you. Just wanted to know if the Alpine Shire ratepayer facing difficulty in time could have access to the Alpine Shire financial hardship policy at any time, and also could our communication team advertise this financial hardship policy in the coming weeks? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. Yes, Council has a published financial hardship policy, which is available on our website. Having said that, if anyone would like to have a discussion about financial hardship, there's no requirement to access the policy. Please simply ring or contact customer service through our customer service team, and we will instigate a confidential discussion about financial hardship and the requirements to access that policy. I'm happy to take up with the comms team providing some additional information with regard to financial hardship, but perhaps close to the next rate due dates. I'll take that on board and have a chat with the comms team about how that might work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. Director Cook, any further questions or comments from councillors? Councillor Anderson.
I guess off the back of Councillor Ronco's question, have we seen an uptake in any hardship, people taking up the hardship policy or having problems paying their rates?
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. So this is something that I have checked in with the team a number of times about over the last few months, particularly with the ongoing discussion about cost of living and how it is impacting on communities in general. I've been advised that we have not seen any increase in contact with regard to financial hardship.
Thank you, councillors. Any further questions, comments? Nope. Take this one to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. There we go. Thank you very much, directors and executive, for where we've got to so far. We now go to item 10, Mayor's Report, item 10.1, which is about the Chief Executive Officer Employment and Remuneration Policy. This was a requirement from the 2020 Local Government Act. So we've had one policy in place that was just basically taken off the shelf, and it was very complex and required significant effort. There were 4 assessments of the CEO through the year, and it seemed like we'd just finished one and we're starting the next one, and you know, the KPIs were set, and then there was no chance to actually demonstrate any change before the first assessment. So during this review process, I looked at many other policies and looked at what best practice was. I also used some notes that I picked up by one of the attendees at a councillor's role in CEO performance workshop course run by MAV, and have come up with what's in front of us. So the substantive changes are that instead of having an independent member, which is a requirement under the Act, as a chairman or chairperson, then that the independent member would be a member only, inverted commas, only, and that the deputy mayor would be put onto the committee as well, so that if the mayor wasn't there, who would then be chairing is, I'm sorry, I'm making this much more complicated than it needs to be. Another substantive change is that the mayor would then be the nominated chairperson, and then the deputy mayor would be on the committee as well, so they could step up if needed. Not that any member can't, but it just makes it a bit smoother. And for me, trying to operate under this policy, it makes it easier to drive the process rather than someone from afar. Having a person on the scene being the instigator and setting up dates and all that sort of stuff, which is what the chair needs to do. So I guess I'll just leave it there for councillors. The recommendations up there. Happy to leave it there for now and get councillors to move and second if they choose to put forward something alternate, have a debate about what's in front of them. Councillor Tanzin. Moved by Councillor Tanzin, seconded by Councillor Anderson. Councillor Tanzin.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good idea having the mayor as the chair, just to make it a bit easier and let the process run a little bit smoother with you being able to drive it rather than that person from afar. So I think that's quite good.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson.
For the last 12 months, I've been on the committee, this committee, and I found it's a very important committee that drives the KPIs and looks at the performance of our CEO, which is a very important part of our council. I think it's important that our policy is something that's workable with the committee, and it's something that we can continue to look at more and make sure is reflective of something so that people can understand that the decisions we make, in the recommendations that the committee makes and brings to the council is going to be something that's going to lead to better results for the performance of the CEO. I guess the only other question I have is, with the mayor being the chairperson, does that mean that they get an extra vote or say or anything else? Is it adding to their influence or in that decision-making process?
So that's a good question. There's the policy is actually silent about that, but there's never been a vote in a committee meeting, in my experience. What's important about having an independent person on the committee, which is, as I said, required under the Act, is that there is independence, and whether that independent is as the chair or as a member, I don't think is that important, as long as there is someone who's got eyes on from afar. So I think that's, I could leave it there, but I wonder if there's a suggestion that we do have some information about voting in the policy. Just a question. Any further questions or comments or anything from Director Cook? She was the one who was very helpful with this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One point that I would potentially point out is that the committee itself doesn't have decision-making powers as a committee, so there is no voting on the committee. So the committee will provide recommendations to a council meeting via a report, and is a council meeting via a report that makes decisions through that policy. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a very important point. And the other thing I'd like to add about the whole process of CEO performance assessments is that there is a committee, yes, all councillors are invited to the committee meetings, and all councillors are requested to be involved in the performance assessment. So it's not, even though we do then take the recommendation to a council meeting as required, we're all involved on the way through, which is great. Any further comments, questions? No. Councillor Tanzin.
Sorry, did we have any issues over the past 12 months with having our independent member as the chairperson?
So not necessarily as having an independent member as the chairperson. We had an independent member who was very particular about, he was great, he provided a lot of insight, but wasn't really good at taking any minutes. So we struggled with keeping track of anything except the actual performance documentation. So we have good performance documentation, but we haven't got accurate minutes from other meetings. And also development of the KPIs. So we've got the really important stuff documented, but the minuting of meetings was really tricky. Sorry, I shouldn't stop talking. Any further comments, questions? We'll take the recommendation to the vote as it is up on the board. All those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Yeah, Councillor Byrne against. Or not recording. Here we. No, don't need to. 6-1.
Carried.
Carried. Sorry. Okay, we move on to item 11, informal meeting of councillors. Again, it goes up. No, it doesn't. We have a recommendation that the summary of the informal meetings of councillors for November, December be received. There are 3 in the paper. Moved Councillor Byrne, seconded Councillor Anderson. Councillor Byrne.
Nothing to add.
Councillor Anderson.
Nothing to add.
Anything from other councillors? No. We'll take this one to the vote. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. We move on to presentation of reports by delegates, and I will start on my left with Councillor Anderson. Oh. Councillor Graham.
Quiet month for me.
Councillor Ronco.
No, nothing.
Councillor Smith. Councillor Tanzan. Oh, nothing for me too. It must be coming up to Christmas. We move on then to general business, and I will start on the other end. Councillor Tanzan.
Nothing from me.
Councillor Smith. Councillor Ronco.
Thank you. Just a couple of general business. So, I would like to have an update on the work conduct in the Popunka Riverside, just to know on this work that we vote, I think, in November, just to know where it is right now and when it will be completed.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. The works are around about 3/4 complete. It may be noted by yourself and some residents that there's loose stones on the new section of roadway that we've created, we've resealed down there. And this will be swept after it's set, which won't be until around about February. So we estimate that the works will be completed at the end of February. It has also involved new pathway, some drainage and a widening of the existing road as well.
Thank you. And also last ordinary meeting, we had also a question from the Wondiligong Preservation Society regarding the slashing work, and wanted to know an update on that.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. Yes, there was 2 items, one in relation to the MOU, and they wanted that draft MOU to be completed and sent, and we did do that, and they've given us some feedback on that, so we're working on that with them. And in addition to that, providing them with the funding that Council committed as part of the 25-26 budget, which was to assist with slashing costs. And we have done that, and the committee has organised and completed those slashing works, which look spectacular actually, so they did a good job. Thank you.
And just wanted to remind the gallery and also residents that we have, I think, 3 documents that we're looking for feedback, some draft document, the SINA, which is very important, but also the trail and track master plan, and the gymnasium and aquatic facility. So all these drafts, they are now on Engaged website for comment and for submission. I think the submission finish on the 4th of January 2026. So they still have a few weeks to let us know what they want. Thank you. And I would like also to address to everyone safe holidays during this period. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ronco. Councillor Graham.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. And I'm going to actually look at the camera while I say this one. I'd like to thank all the people that contacted me either by phone, by email, or on Facebook that supported me and my decision to abdicate from the position of Mayor after 10 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Graham. Councillor Byrne? Nothing. Councillor Anderson? I think Councillor Ronco took my thunder as usual. Well done. But I did just want to say definitely have a joyous, happy and safe Christmas break, New Year. We know it gets really busy. We know the roads get a bit silly. Just be careful. Don't like seeing them. The Medivac chopper flies over our house when it's taken off, and I don't, I just go, oh, is that someone I knew? I see it too many times. I'm now going to ask Mr. Jeremy for general business.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank Director Buckley and the Capital Projects team for delivering such a nice building to hold our council meetings in. I've enjoyed the acoustics a lot more here than in the Senior Sit Centre. I don't know what the audience has found it, but it's been a pleasure sitting here tonight. It's taken quite a number of staff to get this meeting running in a new venue, so I'd like to thank, we've got Luca and Sergio here already with us in the meeting, so thank you for your support, but Toby, Gary, Lisa number 2, and Sarah Matthews for this evening's proceedings. So thanks very much for helping us set up and pack away. It's much appreciated. Last for me is just to remind our audience that the council offices will be closed from midday on the 24th of December, and they will reopen again. Customer service will reopen again on the 2nd of January. If there's an emergency during that holiday period and you need to get hold of council, you can call the normal council number and you'll be directed through to our after hours call. So please only use that if it's an emergency, but feel free, if there is an emergency, feel free to use that to get hold of our staff. There are a number of facilities that continue to operate. So other than Christmas Day, we have visitor information centres which are open throughout the holiday period. The libraries will be closed through the holiday period between Christmas and New Year, reopening again as normal after the New Year. And our transfer stations, I believe, are operational with the exception of Christmas Day. I'm getting a nod, so that must be correct. So I'd like to share the same message. Stay safe and enjoy a break, and we look forward to seeing you in the new year.
Thank you, Mr. Jeremy. We move on to item 14, motions for which notice has previously been given, and there are none. 15, reception and reading of petitions, there are none. 16, documents for signing and sealing, and we have one, which is the Chief Executive Officer Employment and Remuneration Policy. Mover and a seconder for that, please. Mr. Smith, Councillor Smith and Councillor Anderson. Thank you. Mr. Smith. Move on to 17, confidential reports. We don't have...
need to move in second then.
Oh, sorry. We need to vote on it. Sorry. I often rush through this one. So we've got a mover and a seconder. And any comments to make? No. Could we take this one for vote then, please? All those in favour? All those against? Thank you, Councillor Byrne. That is carried. Then we move on to 17, confidential reports. There are none tonight. And 18, closure of the meeting at 7:12 on this 16th of December 2025. Thank you again for everybody who attended.